In this problem, you will first choose a scale that is appropriate for the number line. You will need to model the sum. Second, you will model the sum on the number line. And third, you will state what the actual sum is. So since both numbers are integers, in other words, no decimals, no fractions, the scale that we would want to use would be by ones. Once we do that, you can see that we will now be provided with the number line. And so when we're modeling with the number line, we always start at 0. And from there, we would go out to the first number, which is -2. The second part of your number line should always start where the first one ended. So we're going to start at -2. And we are adding 4. And since we're adding +4, we're going to go in the positive direction. If we were adding -4, we would go in the negative direction. So we're going to go 4 units, 1, 2, 3, 4 to the right. And then from there, we press submit, and we can then enter our answer. And our answer will always be where the last part of the number line ended. And so a couple of quick things here. This part of the number line right here, that traveled 2 units in the negative direction, which is the first number. The second part traveled 4 units in the positive direction. That is this number right here, and wherever we ended, that is the actual answer right there. So the sum here is +2. Continuing with our number line problems, this time we have a subtraction problem, -4 minus -3. Anytime we have a subtraction problem, the first thing we need to do is to write it as this states right here, an equivalent addition expression. In other words, we're going to rewrite that as a addition problem. So we do that by the saying keep, change, opposite. So we're going to keep -4 as -4. We're going to change the subtraction to addition and the second number, -3, to the opposite of what it is. The opposite of -3 is +3. We will then press submit. And then the next thing that we need to do is choose our scale. Both of those numbers are by ones. In other words, no decimals or fractions. So we will use a scale of 1. That will then open up the number line. The problem that we are graphing is either -4 plus 3 or -4 minus -3, which are both equivalent to each other. So we start at 0. We go out to the first number, which is -4. We start the second line where the first one ended. We are adding 3, so we're going to go 3 in the positive direction, which is to the right. So 1, 2, 3, where the last line that we drew ended, that is the answer to -4 plus 3 or -4 minus -3, and that happens to be -1. Continuing with the number line problems, this time we have -2.1 plus -1.6. We first choose our scale. Back in earlier grades, 2.1, you would have phrased that as 2 and 1/10. 1.6, -1 and 6/10. So both of these numbers are by tenths. So that is what our scale should be, 0.1 or 1/10. And when we press submit, you can see that our number line is then divided into 10 sections. So once again, our number line is divided into 10 segments or in tenths. So we always start at 0. We will go out to the first number, which is -2.1, which would be right there. We always start the second line where the first one ended. We are adding -1.6, so that means we're going to continue in the negative direction, 1.6 units. So you could count it if you wanted to. So for example, 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 4/10, 5/10, 6/10, 7/10, 8/10, 9/10, 1, and then 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, 1.6. So that would leave us right there at -3.1, 3.2, 3.3, 3.4, 3.5, 3.6. We ended at -3.7 right there. Press submit, and that will give us what the sum of that problem is. Another number line problem here, this time negative 0.5 plus 1.5. Both of these numbers are technically in tenths, but they also are both halves, or 0.5. So we could use 0.1 for our scale, or we could just use 0.5 since both of them are 0.5. So input our scale, and you can see our number lines are divided in halves, or 0.5s. So like every single number line problem, we start at 0, we go to the first number, which is at negative 0.5. We're then adding positive 1.5, so that means we need to go in the positive direction 1.5. So you could count it out if you wanted to, 0.5, 1, 1.5, wherever the last number line ended, that would be the answer to that number line problem. So in this case, 1. Another number line problem here. This time we have 1.6 minus negative 0.5. Since this is a subtraction problem, we have to write this as an equivalent addition problem or equivalent addition expression. So keep 1.6 as it is, change the subtraction to addition, and the opposite of the second number. The second number is negative 0.5. The opposite of that is positive 0.5. So there is the addition expression we are using. 1.6 plus 0.5. Those are both in tenths. So our scale would be in tenths, or 0.1. And we always start our number line at 0, go out to the first number, which is 1.6. There's 1, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, 1.6. We start the second part of the number line where the first one ended. And since it is plus 0.5, we keep going in the positive direction, 0.5 more units, and we could count it, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5. And that is where we end. We press submit, and then we can input our answer wherever the last number line ended. That would be the answer to this problem, which is positive 2.1. Another number line problem here, this time 2.5 minus 5. Since this is a subtraction problem, we have to first write it as an equivalent addition problem. So keep 2.5 as it is, change the subtraction to addition, change the 5 to the opposite of what it is. So that would be 2.5 plus negative 5. Press submit. We can now input our scale of our number. The first number is in 0.5s. The second number is in 1s technically, so our scale can't be 1s. It would need to be 0.5s. If at least one of the numbers is that, you have to make the scale that. And you can now see our number line is in halves, or 0.5s. So start at 0, go out to the first number, which is 2.5, and then we're adding negative 5, which means we have to go 5 in the negative direction. And so 0.51, 1.52, 2.53, 3.54, 4.55, and wherever that last part of the number line ended, that would be our answer to this problem. And you can see that it ended at negative 2.5. Another number line problem here. This time we have negative 1 3/4 minus negative 1 1/2. So we are dealing with fractions. So when we get to the scale, we're going to have to think about common denominator. But the first thing we have to do is rewrite this as an equivalent addition expression. So keep negative 1 3/4 as negative 1 3/4. Change the subtraction to addition, and the second number becomes the opposite of what it is. That's a negative 1/2. The opposite of that is positive 1/2. So now we have negative 1 3/4 plus 1/2. Now we choose our scale. So we're talking about fourths and halves here. So we really have to think about this in terms of the common denominator. The least common denominator between 4 and 2 is 4. So therefore our scale should be 1/4. Don't make the scale 4, because then the number line will be going by 4s. You need it to go by 1/4. So submit. We now have our number line, and you can see that it is by fourths. So we start at 0. We go out to the first number, negative 1 3/4. We're adding to that positive 1/2, so we have to go in the direction of positive numbers, which is to the right, and we're going to go 1/2, which is the same thing as 2/4, and wherever we ended, that would be the answer to the problem. And you can see that it is at -1 and 1/4. So that is the answer to that problem.